Welcome to Eye on the Money, the television show that gives you insights into how to improve your financial well-being as well as make your money work for you. I'm Ingrid Nantege. Today on the show, we're going to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the pensions industry. Now, pension managers in Kenya have projected depressed growth of retirees' funds due to the coronavirus pandemic that has negatively impacted the financial markets. About 17.5% of retirees' money was invested in quoted securities at the Nairobi Securities Exchange as of December 2019. This amounted to $2.1 billion, up from $1.8 billion in 2018. According to the Retirement Benefits Authority 2019 industry report, the growth in the retirement benefits sector is projected to drop in the first half of 2020, given the effects of COVID-19, which has in the shortest time negatively impacted the financial markets and is postulated to significantly affect the global economy. Now, joining me in studio to help us better understand the impact of COVID-19 on the pension industry and how this will eventually trickle down to your funds is Ruth Njuguna, Senior Manager in charge of Consultancy and Customer Relations at Octagon Africa. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ruth.
Thank you.
So when we talk about the pensions industry, you know, we've had tourism, airlines are part of tourism, SMEs, so many industries have been affected. And here we are talking about the pensions industry being one of those that has already taken a hit so far in 2020. Now, just to start us off, maybe give us the numbers, the statistics when it comes to retirement benefits currently in Kenya.
Interesting question, and perhaps the best so far.
Right.
Is
so
that,
far.
Yes. When we look at numbers, they never lie. And perhaps when people listen or hear the facts about the pension industry, they'll take it seriously. Currently, the assets under management in the retirement benefit sector is around 1.3 trillion, which accounts to around 13% of our GDP, which means if we were to put a little bit of effort, it would help us in terms of managing internal domestic borrowing, especially for the government. If you look at economies like the UK, the US, they are largely driven by pension because their GDP in terms of, the percentage of pension assets in comparison to the GDP is around 80, 90, up to even over 100% of their GDP. That's why they don't have many challenges as far as domestic borrowing is concerned. Locally, in terms of the members who contribute, we are slightly in excess of 3 million, and 2/3 of that is under the National Social Security Fund. Which means largely the other people, apart from the mandatory requirement, the rest of them, slightly under 1 million, are just voluntary, though in terms of asset base, they account for 75%. If we were to put much more effort, I think the assets would largely get to the point where we want, at 80-90% of the GDP, and the government would stop struggling on monetary policy as far as they are concerned. In terms of, at an individual level, as far as individuals are concerned when pension comes to play, is that we have something we call the income replacement ratio, which is basically more of a wage replacement ratio. If today you were to leave the services of your employer at retirement, how much would your pension convert to as equivalent to your pay?
Right.
So if you're earning 100,000 and your pension at the point you're retiring is 60,000, it means then your replacement ratio is 60%. So currently the conversion ratio is 34%, as opposed to 75% as recommended by the ILO, which is the International Labour Organization. So you can see that we are very much far behind, at least 60% below the required target. Yes.
You mentioned we're behind the required target, but still the figures you mentioned before are gobsmacking in terms of contribution to GDP, in terms of how much money that actually goes into this industry. My question then is, with those gobsmacking figures, what sort of impact and how big has the pandemic affected the industry, considering we're already behind? Have we now gone 50 steps behind? Where do we stand in the midst of this pandemic that has almost crippled pretty much every sector in this economy right now?
Of course, the pandemic is a game changer, but I mean, there's Jeff Bezos, Amazon.com once said, I mean, when the world around you changes, for better or for worse, you have to learn how to sail, and complaining isn't a strategy.
That's a good one.
Yes. So in that case, yes, we are going to be taken aback, but remember, pension benefits are a long-term investment. So currently, the assets under management in terms of valuation have gone back, I mean, by roughly negative 10%. But even then, worse still is that the first quarter performance is already at negative 3%. So the equities have gone down, and of course, it largely impacts on our retirement benefits. And this impact is anticipated that for us to recover to where we are currently, it will take us at least 1 to 3 years. The good news is that with the current decline in terms of valuation and the market, is that lies a great opportunity for us to start purchasing assets at a lower cost, with the intention of converting that into long-term capital gain, which will cover the pandemic period or the period that we have lost. So there is a silver lining.
So with the jargon aside, and now that you've told us the sort of impact that it has had, what does that mean? What sort of implication does that mean to me, Ingrid Nantege, a layperson with a pension fund? So with everything that's gone on, I mean, we're falling back on so many things, but what does that mean to me and my funds?
It means that at the temporary is that you will have lost something in the process, of course, coupled with the fact that financial sustainability for employers is slowly becoming a problem. So salary is being reduced. We are trying to get people to take unpaid leave. We are laying off some people, suspending contributions, and it means in the short term, many people are losing in the process. Either once you have been laid off, there is no longer more pension contributions coming in, so your retirement income is being depleted, or you have a reduced salary, which means whatever you had been contributing is your only fallback plan. And I mean, in the next 10, 20 years, if you do not have a replacement of that, then at retirement, all of us, I mean, a majority will either go broke. And if we do not have intermediate interventions, then in the long term, even the ones who will have accumulated wealth will be forced to support the ones who don't have. And that means perhaps the parents will have to depend on their children as a fallback plan on retirement. And even the little that we currently have, because what the law allows is that when you have been laid off or you leave before retirement, you can access part of your fund, which continues to deplete the income. And because we have competing needs right now, people have exhausted their savings at an individual level, so they are still consuming their pension. And in the long term, I mean, all of us will not have anything to fall back on at retirement.
Oh my God.
And currently, I mean, some of the things that the government is grappling with, if you look at the budget, I mean, retirement, or rather money that goes to pay pensioners, is already at 100 billion in terms of payout. It is the fifth largest component as far as the government budget is concerned. We also have a monthly payout of close to 2 billion that goes to the elderly. That's the 2,000 shillings. And the question is it sustainable? It is not. Already we are sitting on a pension time bomb, and the pandemic just makes it worse.
Hey, Ruth, I wasn't ready for everything that you just said. But then you tapped into a question that I was going to ask next. The reality is there's so many companies that are going bust. People are being laid off. Obviously, their pension is being affected. And you said it rightfully, whether we like it or not, that point of retirement is going to come. So whether we're going to rely on our children or not, that's something that's in between. But however, as someone who has been laid off, I no longer have a source of income, or my company has just gone under, but I still want to keep my fund going. I still want to keep contributing, for my retirement. What practical advice would you give someone within this period who's almost lost it all? Is there a way forward, or you just now have to pick yourself up from ground up?
Of course, there is a way forward. The first thing is we all have to accept the reality. Many a times the reason why we fail is we are in denial. So accept that we are in it for the long term, and we are not going back, because these scenarios are going to play out in the future with global warming, changes in our future working patterns, the introduction of technology, of course, people are going to lay off, and we need to find alternatives in terms of bridging the gap. So the first point is to assess your current position. What do I need to survive on? How much of that can I be able to save? And what are the alternative ways that I can be able to raise extra money? So if at all I was saving 10%, temporarily I can reduce that to 5% while I try to bridge the gap. And if absolutely you need the pension money, you can access just the portion that you're able to use for the time being, use it to generate more. There are various mechanisms that, the regulator has provided. Currently, you can vary your contributions, you can suspend, with the intention that when things get back to normal, you are able to bridge the gap. And even, now if you get into a better job or you have more income, you can increase through voluntary contributions so that you cater for the time that you had lost. Over and above that, I think the government is trying to come up with measures that will either curb at a personal and also at a government level that will be able to help them.
Just for the purpose of clarity, and just in case at that point when I was writing, you mentioned that it's actually a possibility to tap into your pension.
Yes.
Just in case like you get to that point where you have an emergency. My question is, how do you go about it? How much can you access? Are you allowed to access all of it? What happens when it comes to those logistics?
So currently, the way the law is, is structured is that for you to access money before retirement is on the grounds of like 3 conditions. 1, you must have left employment. 2, you have perhaps fallen sick, ill health, permanent or total disability, and you're unable to work for the rest of your life, or you are emigrating to another country with no intention of coming back. So currently, whatever is possible is only on early leaving, and because employers are laying off, there are conditions around it. So employers are employees can only access the money at the point of layoff, and you access what is is in your pot at 100%, and another 50% from the employer. But over and above that, we saw recently part of the tax amendment is the government, through the Retirement Benefits Authority, is introducing new mortgage regulations where employees will be able to use 40% of their retirement benefits, even while in service, to purchase a home, which is also part of the Big 4 agenda for the government. Yes.
So we'll take a very quick break, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we have so much more for you right here on Eye on the Money. And you can also be a part of the conversation by sending your feedback to Metropole TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and all our other social media handles. We'll be right back.